listeners, and welcome to the Super Ultra Podcast Arcade bonus episode. This is the Game of the Year episode, which we're calling it this year the Half-Ass Game of the Year Awards, because we didn't play enough games that came out in 2020. So we're going to do something special. We're going to have a list of games that we thought, if we had played them, they will be on our Game of the Year list. So some of the games we did play, that's on our list, but I think quite a few of them we haven't played or didn't play enough of to justify being on a real traditional Game of the Year, yes. But we was like, fuck it, whatever. We're going to have a list, make a list of games that, hey, if we played them, they would have been our Game of the Year for 2020. So that's why we're calling it half-ass. It's not a real true traditional Game of the Year list, but hey, we're just going to put one out there because everybody does one anyway. So it's like, who cares? And hey, it's the internet.
You don't think all those people play all those games anyway, right, Dominic?
Exactly. Not even play all those games. And plus, it's the internet, so it's like, hey, people hate stuff they don't play, and people love stuff they don't play. And that's what people do. So we're just
You're right. Next week, we need to make a bonus pod for worst games of the year from last year that we have not played.
Yeah, exactly.
Those shit's down a notch.
So we're going to go down the list. We're going to start with 10 going up. And we're going to do a rotation to talk about each one. So, all right. So, yeah. Okay. I just fixed my list. So, now you can start with your number 10. So, what's the number 10 game you got, Dan?
So, my number 10 was Paper Mario The Origami King. Kind of the only big release from Nintendo this year on the Switch that really caught my attention in any way. There was a while there where you and I were talking about Animal Crossing, and after it came out, I very quickly was like, yeah, I've never really been that into an Animal Crossing game. I don't know why this one I was like leading into it like, ooh, Animal Crossing. And I think honestly I kind of do that with all the Animal Crossings. Like, oh, hey, Animal Crossing, and then I never buy them or play them. This one this Animal Crossing seems like it might be a little more, interesting because of the like terraforming stuff.
Why are we talking about Animal Crossing? I thought you said Paper Mario.
I was getting back to it, Dominic. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I went in a different direction. Yeah. But Paper Mario, I think it looks really cool. The battle system with the weird rotating disc situation that you do, I think is really clever. And it sounds like it's pretty interesting as far as like the way you kind of line up shots and can almost like one-hit battles sometimes. The Paper Mario series, the humor for me has always been very cutesy, and I like it a lot. Overall, I just think this would have been a really cool game on the Switch. And especially coming out of Nintendo this year where we haven't really seen a lot of stuff come from them. One of the drier years for them.
Yeah, I just didn't know if that would be... I mean, that's a game I want to play eventually, but just like I had a chance to play the Color Splash, or whatever it's called, on the Wii U. And I just didn't. And I never got into it. I like the handheld games of those type of RPGs.
The Mario and Luigi.
The Mario, yeah. But it's... I don't know. I'm thinking like, even if I had a chance to play it, I probably wouldn't have played it. That's why I didn't put it on my Game of the Year. I felt like I would have, if I was going to play these games of 2020, I wouldn't, if I had to choose between those, like all those games, that would have missed it only because I didn't have a chance. I didn't have time to play a game like that, or I wouldn't have given enough time to. So I would have put so much time into those other games the other big games of 2020. That's the only reason I probably wouldn't have it on my list. I felt like that's why, because I was thinking about that game too. I was like, this game I probably would like, but compared to what games I have on my list, and then potential games I would have tried out, I was like, I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't make my top 10. Maybe it would have, but who knows? We don't know because we didn't do it. We didn't play them. It's just, all right. So I guess I'll go to my number 10. So my number 10 game is Streets of Rage 4, and this is a game I actually played. Streets of Rage 4 is a brawler, a sequel to the Sega Genesis games that came out years ago, a long time ago on the Genesis. It was a co-op beat 'em up game, very fun. I like the certain moves you can use. It's your basic beat 'em up, but it was great. It was one of the best ones, and they did a really great job of giving homage to those games, like keeping it feel like those games, but something new. I like the art style, and having online co-op, which seems that shouldn't be a big deal, but apparently that is, because some games don't have online co-op that you would think would. Even though I do have to discredit them on not having 4-player online co-op, that you have to only play couch co-op. So I don't like that. That apparently, I don't know why they couldn't implement that, but whatever. Other than that, it was good variety. It was also a good lengthy game. It's not, I'm going to call it, for a beat 'em up, I think it was a great length. It wasn't too short, and it wasn't too long. And it was fun. I played with my friends multiple times in this game. We played together during the summer. And it was like, man, this was great. And hey, plus being on Game Pass definitely did help, because, I think I still would have picked them up. But it's actually getting me to think like, hey, I might one day, maybe it was on sale on the Switch. I'll pick it up on the Switch, because this game is, it's fun. I still wouldn't mind playing it. And it's, I like the variety of characters. I like also how they have the classic characters coming in too. That's pretty cool. And having their different moves and supers. Yeah, they did a good job with this game. Like, I want to see a sequel now. Like, I really want to see a sequel out of this studio on this game, because right now this is probably for what I played, like one of the top brawlers in recent years that I played. Now, my friend, he did finally said he tried out Guacamelee 2, so he wants to play that. So I said, okay, I'll play that with you definitely, because I didn't play that. But yeah, but see, yeah, I didn't play enough Guacamelee to compare to this. I would say I played Guacamelee 1. I did like it better. The Streets of Rage, but it was different. Guacamelee is different. You know, it's not really a brawler. But as a typical brawler, Streets of Rage is probably the best one out there of recent years. There's a few ones out there I haven't tried, but right now, yeah, this game is great. Like, I was looking forward to it, and it turned out to be pretty good. So I guess we're moving to our number 9. So what you got for your number 9?
All right, so I got Ghost of Tsushima. This is a game that I was excited about leading up to its release, and then maybe a little more apprehensive about it once I started hearing people kind of compare it to just older style open world games, ones that were more collectathon-y, which actually does kind of fall in line with my interests. I like a game where I can just, sometimes turn it on and not want to necessarily play the main story stuff and just go around the map. And especially if they point me at things like, here, you're powerful enough to just go to this spot as quickly as you want. Now, it's lower on my list because a lot of the things I hear, like the combat is kind of iffy, and that's where I'm kind of like a little apprehensive about playing it. I mean, I foresee myself playing this at some point in the future. I don't know, maybe if I get a PlayStation 5 or something, and I'm like, I want to see how this runs on there. But for the most part, it looks really cool. It sounds like the story is very interesting. It's just visually beautiful. And I like open world games. So one of these days I'll get around to playing that, but just not this year, Dominic. Just not this year. Well, last year, I guess.
The problems you said about that game is why I don't have it on my list at all. It's because even though I like open world games, just that what I've seen hasn't sold me on this is a game that I will really appreciate it as much as I thought I would initially when I first heard about the game. Like the gameplay stuff I've seen, to me it looks boring compared to games that I played that was like it. That while I look at games like Assassin's Creed, it looks more lively. Like compared to that, it looks boring to me. Maybe I would like it. Like if I tried it out, maybe I would totally change. But I'm just saying, from what I watched on YouTube and things of that nature, I was like, I don't know if this will be a game in my top 10. I mean, I probably like it, but I don't think this will be as good as Odyssey to me. But maybe it is. I'm just saying, like what I've seen has not sold me on it that I would take it over those other games. So that's the only reason. Because I was thinking about that game too, and I was like, yeah, darn, I wouldn't put it on top. And I heard the story. I heard mixed things on.
Yeah.
So that's really what's got me. Because I was like, man, the story was great. Then I think maybe I would have put this on. But I heard so many mixed things on the story. The quality, of it that
sounds like there's some like weird characterizations, especially around the way players or characters react to like your gameplay choices. Like, oh, if you're more stealthy, then these characters are gonna like, oh, that's not cool that you're disrespecting the code. Yet here you are like murdering millions of people, and that's fine as long as you do it face to face and stuff like that. Seems kind of weird.
Yeah. So that's the reason why it didn't come on my list. I guess I'll talk about my number 9. My number 9 game is Hyrule Warriors 2. I didn't complete the game. I'm still early on. Just played probably like 3 or 4 stages, but this is a game I feel like would have been on my top 10 because I love Warrior games, and this game is like one of the best versions of that type of game. So I was like, yeah, this game probably would definitely be on my top 10 if I had completed this year. I love the combat is great. I love the implementation of the Breath of the Wild mechanics and how to implement it in the Warrior style of using them. It feels great. Like first I wasn't used to it, but once I got used to using the different power moves, I was like, okay, I get in the hang of this, and it's just fun. It just feels good just to destroy so many enemies and switching characters, because not in all Warrior games you switch characters. Sometimes you just stay as your same character, the character you picked. But I know they did this in the previous Hyrule Warriors. You know what? I don't know if they did that in the first Hyrule Warriors. I could just switch characters on the fly. I know they did that for Fire Emblem Warriors, but I don't remember for the first one. But I always like that. I can switch and go different places on the map and tell, just like a Fire Emblem, where I can tell, hey, I want you to go over this area to fight to destroy this base, while I'll go over here and destroy it. You sort of can do that here also. Well, you can do that here also. And yeah, I like it because if I want to switch back to them and control them to destroy that base, I can take care of that. So we all have to be all bunched up together. It's a cool way to add a little strategy element to this game. And yeah, the look of the game, the art style they use, because it's the Breath of the Wild All-Star, and it looks great. It looks really good. And it really makes you think, like, darn, this game was on a little more powerful system, like how good it will look with that art style.
Let me tell you about how Microsoft and Microsoft and Nintendo should team up again, Dominic.
Yeah. Well, maybe the Switch Pro. Maybe the Switch Pro will finally do that, Dan. Maybe they will finally do it. But yeah, it's the game. Yeah, I believe this will be in one of my top 10s. If I did a true top 10 this year. You got anything to say?
It's a game. Yeah, it's a game that I was surprised at how much I enjoyed from playing the demo. And then I was glad you picked it up so I could put a little more time into it. But it's still not something that would have necessarily been something that I searched out and purchased. It seems like a really cool game, just not something that, over the other games I have on my list, I would have chosen to play.
Yeah, your list sucks on it, whatever. All right, Dan. So let's move on to our number 8. So what you got for your number 8?
All right, Dominic. So kind of in the vein of my number 9, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So Assassin's Creed Valhalla, from what I've heard, is basically like the slightly more improved version of Ghost of Tsushima. Obviously it's different in ways, but it's extremely similar in a lot of other ways. It's an open world game, kind of in the similar fashion, but also follows more in the vein of one of the newer Assassin's Creeds that is, like an Odyssey or Origins, where it's more of almost an action gamey thing than it is, just an open world with hints of stealth, which the original Assassin's Creed games were. A lot of the stuff that I'm hearing about, like the story beats, especially as it relates to the overall Assassin's Creed universe, actually has me very intrigued where they're actually going to go with that stuff. It seems like they're in the kind of wild territory again of melding it all together with that stuff. So I'm intrigued by that. I think just gameplay wise, even Origins and Odyssey are games that I would really like to, if I had the time, revisit, visit for the first time in the case of Origins, and spend any real amount of time on for Odyssey. And I think a lot of the other stuff that they've added for this, like ransacking villages and stuff, sounds kind of neat. So I was intrigued by this game. Not one that's, necessarily at the top of my list, but I have enjoyed Assassin's Creed as a series for a long time, and I think I could get a whole lot of enjoyment out of this one if I had played it this past year.
Yeah, this game I have on my list at number 4 because that's what I was thinking when I Ghost of Tsushima. I felt like this was a better version of that. So I was like, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I enjoyed Odyssey, even though I know this is the Origins guys. But from what I read on this game is that it is really done well. I say, I can see myself enjoying this game and getting lost in this world and playing it and doing a lot of extra things, even the stuff that's probably not fun, just doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I can see myself definitely getting lost in this game. And I heard the story, like you said about the story beats. I feel like, that does deal with the lore a little bit more, and I'm curious about that. And I'm curious. The story seemed like it's all right. It seemed like it's a pretty decent story that I'm more interested in. I'm more interested in how they go about doing that, and the whole thing of you like managing your village or your clan or whatever of that nature they have in that game. I say, I could see myself getting lost in that also. So I could that's a game I do want to try out is Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and because I felt like I really enjoyed that game, and I had it up there at number 4 on my list. So I guess I can cross that one out since we talked about it. So I guess I can say my number 8. My number 8 would be Carry On, which is the alien Metroidvania game where you play as this alien blob that kills your captures, I guess, people in your facility, and I guess you're trying to escape. I haven't completed the game. I played I'm still in the beginning portion of the game, but I played a good bit, and it's fun. I mean, it's just fun going through that game and just eating enemies and the way you can kill them and scare the shit out of them and stuff like that, how they scream. It feels so good how you get powerful as you eat them, like you get powerful and that nature. And the variety of ways of you traversing around the level, how you just attach to the walls, you can go through vents, and how you also figure out puzzles. And I mean, I also like that it's done in this Metrovania way, you know, not like in like a regular third person action you're killing bad. Because I mean, I've done that before, but in this way, I like because it really makes it so you have to like, oh man, I have to figure out, okay, what's the best way for me to get out of this portion of the level. And there's sometimes there's multiple ways. Sometimes there's multiple ways. If you want to take, you could take an action approach if you can survive. You know, go right to them if they're shooting at you, or you can like distract them. Like I might throw something and they'll come, and then I'll go another location and then grab them, or something of that nature. So yeah, this game was a surprise because I remember seeing it, but actually after playing it, I was like, oh man, this game is fun. This is fun as hell. I just gotta find time to play it because there's so many damn games that I do want to finish it. But yeah, but this game is definitely up there. Like this one, I think it's a game you will like. I'm just surprised.
Oh
you haven't really
absolutely.
Played it.
I'm definitely intrigued by it. It's one of those things like I have Game Pass, and I'll even go as far as like downloading some games when we're talking about them. I'll think about it during the podcast or something, and I'll download them, and then I just never play them. Like Spiritfarer looked cool as shit, and I'm not even sure that's on Game Pass anymore. I think that might have left now, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, just it's time.
That,
it's time. You don't have time.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Is it like a left stick, right stick thing? Like your right stick controls your tentacles or something like that?
I forget, man, because I ain't played it since the summer. I can forget. I think the triggers, like, I think if you hold the triggers help to grab too. Like you have to hold onto the wall. Like I think if you let go,
weirdly
you fall.
Like Octodad kind of thing almost.
Yeah,
where it's
but not, it's not hard to control. No, Octodad, it was like, it's not hard. Like Octodad was purposely like weird controls, but
absolutely.
This is not that. Yeah, it's not like, oh, it just feels really
Grow
weird.
Home, I guess, is more of a inappropriate, like just the way you're using like left and right triggers to control independent kind of tendrils or something.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah,
that's definitely one that
like.
I definitely want to check out. I mean, I don't even think about it. Like I don't know if I forgot that it was a Metroidvania or just don't think about it. Like I see it and I'm thinking like, oh, kind of linear 2D action thing, and then every time you say Metroidvania, like it tingles that thing in my brain where I'm like, why am I not playing this game right now? What am I doing? What's going on? That's also like, I think there's this thing in my head where it's like a game like that I would really like to play on the Switch, but it's free on Game Pass. So there's these like two conflicting things in my head where it's like, well, I want to play it on the Switch, but I'm not going to buy it on the Switch because I already own it technically on the PC, but I'm not going to play it on the PC because that's not really where I want to play it. And then I just like talk myself out of playing it instead of just sitting down and spending the fucking hour that I could have, that like my two sides of the brain are like conflicting. I find myself doing that. Like I spend so much, that's part of my problem with like not having played so many games. And even before I had a kid, that was an issue that I had. But I think now more so, at least I have heard an excuse where it's like, I can sit down and I can watch a YouTube video or something like that while also paying attention to her. Because most of the time, one, it's not like active. It's a very passive activity. And also it's YouTube. So it doesn't really matter whether I'm paying attention to it or not. Whereas like a television show or a movie, I feel like I need to pay more attention to. And then like video games are active. So I have to be like actively paying attention to them. So I don't like doing that when I should be paying attention to my daughter. So there's like, the times when I can pass her off to my wife or something like that and actually put some time in like I have over these past couple of months with Control. But like, it's very much like trying to balance all these things. And then obviously like the weird shittiness in my brain where it's like, oh, I could just come home and not do anything at all and throw on a YouTube video instead of playing this game that I would really like to play. I'm very bad at managing my time is basically what I'm saying, Dominic. So
okay.
There's that. the roundabout way of getting to the point I was trying to make.
All right, so I guess we get into our number 7 games on the list. So what you got for your number 7?
So I got Hades, and especially now, like this past week, Giant Bomb has been doing their Game of the Year award stuff, and I'm not at their actual Game of the Year awards part yet. They always do like categories beforehand, but there's a lot of talk of Hades already from them. There's been so much talk about Hades over this past year about how good it is. Even people talking about it like in comparison to Spelunky 2, because they have similarities. They're roguelikes. And, you know, we've talked about it in the past. The art style of that game is beautiful. Both the character designs of like the little messages that they pop up where it's like hand-drawn stuff, and then also the actual gameplay. It's a game that reminds me a lot of Binding of Isaac, and I really like that game. So I could see myself falling into this game very easily. It's another one where it's like, oh, do I want to play it on the Switch? But I've heard maybe there's some slowdown on the Switch. But that's probably where I would like to pick it up, just so I can pick it up, play a run or two, and then, you know, put it down. That's one thing. I'm not entirely sure like how long the runs in this game are. Are they like Spelunky where you can finish the thing in like 20 minutes? Or is it like a more sustained thing? But overall, it looks really cool. The music sounds like it's very good from what I've been hearing from these Game of the Year podcasts. And also just, you know, having dialogue for like every instance. I think we talked about it in the past, but there being like hundreds of hours of different dialogue that they recorded for this game, I think is really cool. It's one of those ones that just like eventually I'm going to get there, but just other things have come along. And, you know, it's also one of those games where it's like, oh, well, it's like, I think you can find it for like $15 on sale, but it's like, oh, do I want to get it cheaper than that? But normally it's like $24 or something like that. And that's not that much, but also, you know, just, there's a lot of fucking just excuses in my brain, Dominic, for why I don't play some of these games. But yeah, Hades looks awesome. I'm very excited about getting around to that game one of these days.
Yeah, I got Hades as my number 2 game on my list.
Very nice.
Because seeing, and the only reason I put it number 2, I heard this because a lot of people love it. So I feel like I must go and love it too. So I'm going to put it at number 2.
I mean, you've kind of fallen down the roguelike hole this year, Dominic.
Yeah.
You know?
So
you're on board a little bit. Maybe not with the same games that I am, but like we're in the same category here.
Because, well, this is a roguelike that actually has a story. And I was like, oh, a decent story from what I heard. So I was like, well, I like stories. I love stories in games. I hear everybody's loving it. Yeah, I think that it can scratch the itch of these roguelike games. But it looks like it's really fun that people who even don't like roguelikes, the people were saying that even if you don't like roguelikes, some people are really loving this game. So I was like, okay, I'm not a big roguelike fan, but I do like Neon Abyss, and I like some of these other games that I played recently, Dead Cells. So... yeah, and then I looked at the game. I was like, yeah, it looks all right. It looks like a pretty damn good game. And so I said, I'm going to have to try this game. Yeah, this year I'm going to try this game sometime this year. Yeah, I figured, like, you know what? This might be, I'm looking at it, it's like this might be one of those big hits that I didn't expect. If I had played it, it would have been up there as one of my top games. So I put that at number 2. I put it high at number 2 because how people were saying they had it for the game of the year. So I was like, maybe I would have said the same thing. I probably would have said the same thing. It'll be close to that for me. All right, so where are we at? Number 7?
Yep.
So my number 7 game of the year is The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 4. Because I really like that series, even though I haven't even played 3 yet. But I was going to say, this is going to be my number. This was going to be in my top 10 somewhere, probably. So let me put it down here. Yeah, I mean, ain't really much for me to say. I only put it up here because I like the series, so I just figured it'll be on my list. I don't think it would have been in like my top 5, so I had to find some place to put it, so I said 7. I said 7 would be fine for me. So, there you go. So what's your number 6 game?
My number 6 is Ori and the Will of the Wisps. This kind of similar to your Legend of Heroes 3 and 4 situation. Like, I played Ori 1, but didn't ever beat it. But I thought it was fantastic. It's just one of those games that I really enjoyed and then kind of fell off of. Metroidvania, obviously, ticks one of those boxes. Beautiful hand-drawn art takes another one. And from what I'm hearing of this one is the gameplay is an improvement over even that first one, which I thought was perfectly fine. I hear a lot of people talking about how the combat in this one is much improved. And I don't remember the first one being bad necessarily. I also don't expect it don't remember it being incredible. But honestly, like a Super Metroid, I'm just like shooting my little beam at people. It's not anything that's mind blowing as far as combat goes. So, I don't necessarily expect anything too crazy, but yeah, I think this is a really cool game. Some of the story stuff that I've heard about has been very touching. So I'm very, very interested in that game. That's another one that's like, That's the wild thing about my list is like most of them are things that I have access to either via Game Pass or, I just have, I purchased at some point. I just haven't been able to make the time or I've run into some other issue. And this is another one, Ori and the Will of the Wisp is available on Game Pass. I just need to, get my shit together and play it, Dominic. So
yeah. I played a little bit of it, and I enjoyed what I played of it. Like, I really like what I played of it, too. I just play enough of it. And, it's a great game. It is a great game. It's just probably not my top game, but that's it. It's not to say there's anything bad about the game. It's just, like, my personal top 10.
Yeah.
Just, it wouldn't be up there. Though I believe I had the first Ori on my top 10 or 5, whatever list we had.
I recall correctly, yeah.
I think I did have that. And you know what? Or I think maybe it would have. Maybe it would have been if I completed it. But I had stopped. Just stopped playing it. Because I was like, I wanted to go back and play the first one again. And then I just never did that. So what number are we on, man?
We are on number 6.
Okay, that was your number 6, is Ori. Okay, so my number 6 is Neon Abyss. Neon Abyss, this is a surprise game. It was on Game Pass, so I figured, hey, let me try this game. I didn't know what it was. And then I saw like, oh, it's a roguelike game. And I was like, okay, I probably won't like it. But I ended up loving it. I ended up loving this game. It's a shooter, roguelike shooter. So I do like the shooting feels good. I really enjoy it. And just collecting loot, man, it just gets so addicting. And it's just fun. It's just so fun doing it. And really be losing, if I lose or die, I know it's something I did. Or, some things are random. Some things are random because you might pick up a loot that makes it like, oh, yeah, you're powerful, but you lose hearts or something like that. So it's like, it makes things harder for me. But it is fun. It's like some of the loot you get, it makes you so powerful or whatever. I feel like I can take on the world. But then I get to the boss and I don't try to dodge. I feel like, hey, I'm super powerful. I can just brute force this boss and just kill it. And then he ends up just, taking me out. And I say, if I would have just at least dodged something, I would have got past it. It's on me. But the game is fun as hell. The stages are all unique. Because just like in roguelikes, certain roguelikes, you go different stages, they'll random generate it. And the bosses are funny. You have certain bosses that they look like Ronald McDonald or something, and he's just shooting out like burgers. He doing something with food and things of that nature. You got to kill. You got like a TV monster. I'm trying to remember the other ones. I can't remember, but yeah, the game is great. It's a long way to go for me. Even though I beat certain worlds, but you gotta fight these big, it's like each world has its own boss, and so I think I beat 2 of them, and I'm on the third one right now. And I unlocked did I unlock a third character already? I think I unlocked a third character. You start out with 2. I like the third one, but I'm still sticking with the girl. Because she seems like she's more my pace, because she's easier, she has more hearts than the other guys. But so yeah, that's more my pace with that game. But yeah, this game it's fun as hell. Like it's a good pick up and play. Like if this is on the Switch, it'd definitely be easier for me to play it even more if it was on the Switch. I know that. But yeah, I wish you could transfer saves over or something like that, which was like, hey, transfer your saves from your PC or your Xbox so I can just start from there. I'll start from the beginning, but the game is great. All right, so what we got? We got our number 5. This is our top 5 now. So what's your number 5, Dan?
Number 5, another one available on Game Pass now. It wasn't originally, but Doom Eternal. I loved that original Doom 2016, and from everything that I hear, this one is pretty much more of the same, and I don't necessarily take that as a bad thing. You know, you've talked about that past couple of weeks or month or so about playing that, and it just sounds so cool. I love the fast-paced action of that game, well, the original, and I think the improvements of like the grappling hook and stuff like that in this one, I think just, you know, we'll put that on the next level and boost it up the list for me. So I'm excited to play that game.
Well, Doom is my number 3 game on my list. That game is fun as hell. I mean, they really improved on their first one. I mean, like in almost every way, like they've done some improvements. I can't think of like a downside. Maybe as far as maybe if you want to say story, but I don't pay attention to the story, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, just with the way they add the chainsaw and the different guns. They had the sword, huh? What'd you say?
And that like shoulder flamethrower thing.
Yeah, the shoulder flamethrower. That's cool. Also, the different weaponry. Like I love the shotgun. The shotgun with the chain that like kind of almost like scorpion chain that pulls you into the enemy and shit like that. That game is just so fun. Like it's so fun and hectic. Like it just keeps you going. The adrenaline is just always there. That's how it was in the first game, and this one it keeps it up. And like I was just so addicted to really like playing that. Like I always wanted to play it. And like even when I finished a level. I mean, and the levels are long, so I feel like, man, I this was great. I mean, I can take a break, but I know the next day or a few hours later, I'll say, oh yeah, let me do it through a level again. And I ain't mind going back to the same levels to get the extra stuff. Like if I missed something, to go back on it. That was fun, even though I don't like that. I wish it was something. I forgot what it was.
It's like the teleport points or something, like checkpoints or something.
The checkpoints won't stay. Even after you complete the level, if you want to go back, you got to start over again, which I think is like, come on, I've already completed the level. I don't care if you put the enemies back there, but at least let me teleport to the areas that I've been to, because I already played this already.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's the game is great. I love the hub world they got there that plays homage to all past Dooms and Quake. I think original Wolfenstein also. So
nice.
That game was done very well. That game was great. I mean, I know a lot of people. I mean, I guess compared to the first one, I mean it's better, but it's like some people felt like it's more the same. But I don't know. I'm okay with that. For me, I'm okay with that. This game was awesome. So that's why it was my number 3.
Yeah, and hearing you talk about it, you know, even not being as big a fan of the first game and hearing you praise this one, I think, you know, kind of made me even more excited for it because I really liked that first game, and the thought that this one's even better is like, hell yeah.
All right. So that was your number 5. So my number 5 is on your list. So I got the Miles Morales Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I've got it as number 1.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's ridiculous. Oh, but anyway,
how dare you?
The game is it's a great game. I mean, I think I'm surprised. Well, I'm not really surprised because Insomniac is a great studio. But I mean, how much game? I'm not surprised at how much game it is because they make it like it is a side story, so it's not as big as the first one. But I feel like I got enough game here, so I'm kind of eating my words because I was really upset with like, man, this game better be full price, and how they going to sell this game as like a a full game for the PS5 and showing it off. That's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But it does. I mean, to me, it's a good sized game. It's a good sized game. It's a lot of game here. It's a lot of things to do. It's not as big as the original Spider-Man, but maybe I am close to the end. If I am close to the end, I'm still not going to down it for this. I think it's still a good enough game here. But I don't know. I mean, maybe $40, $30 range is good. $50, I think it is. Maybe it's a bit of a stretch. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, but I think there's a lot of extra stuff in here, like a lot of side quests. I feel like I'm really doing a lot of side quests in here. So yeah, the game, like there's plenty of game. Like I said, plenty of game here. Like I said, like a billion times. But what I really love is just the style of the game. Like Miles Morales himself, the way he swings, like he's different from Peter Parker. They really got that down. Like defined him as his own Spider-Man. Like it's not just a skin. They didn't just do that. Like the way he swings, the way he flips, the way he fights is different from what Peter is. And the story, like with this character, it really feels a little like an authentic type of character. Like a person of who he is black and Latino. So I definitely like that aspect of it. They really do well with the story, just like they did with Peter Parker Spider-Man. The story is still written great. I like it. The villain's all right. The enemies are pretty good. I mean, though it's not like I know there were some complaints about like the variety, like with the main villains, but it's a shorter game, so I understand. This is like just a shorter story. So I don't know. Because in my mind, I look at it that way, and it's not a problem for me. So I understand why the enemies are what they are. Even though I think Spider-Man enemies eventually, I mean, they weren't changing too much.
No, yeah.
But I mean, when they got to Sable, like with Sable, you start fighting her people, there was a little difference because she had, you had more thugs. Like you did have what were the Chinese men called?
I can't remember. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, you had them. You had Sable. You had the regular thugs, but it was a larger story too with Spider-Man. This, it's a shorter story, so you're only going to get like two guys. You got these two groups that you're fighting, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, as long as there's a variety in those camps, a heavy and a quicker thing, and maybe a more agile thing. Like I don't.
The costumes look great. I like the Spider-Verse one, the one where it actually makes it look like you're moving in the Spider-Verse. That's awesome. The game, they did a really great job with this game. Like I really enjoyed it, and like anybody who's like the first Spider-Man should definitely pick it up. Like it's definitely worth to play. It's definitely worth to play, and it still looks good on the basic PS4. I mean, Spider-Man looked good. I mean, this looks good. So, and then when I look at how it looks on a PS5, I'm like, man, it looks that damn incredible. It's amazing that they can still do it and have it on both. Oh, you got anything to say since this was your number one game?
Yeah, I mean, Spider-Man, the first one was my number one game for that year, and I think this is just kind of a continuation of that, is seeing that it's more of the same of that, and I enjoyed that game so much. But also with a unique style of its own, and it ended up being more of a game from all accounts than maybe I was originally anticipating it being. There was a lot of worry when it was first announced that, this is just maybe like a little DLC kind of expansion thing. But it sounds like it came out as a relatively substantial thing. And, even from listening to what I was saying earlier, finding time to actually play these games, honestly, something that's maybe around this length is more of a good thing to me than it is a bad thing at this point in my life. So yeah, I'm excited to play that game at some point. I think the biggest issue in me not playing it last year was just that I had started Control right before it came out, and I was kind of committing myself to playing Control because I knew if I stopped at some point, I would never start playing that game again. And it's not anything to speak to the quality of Control, but that's just unfortunately the way things go with me, whether it's I buy another game and I move on to that or, something else. And I really wanted to see Control through to the end. So I, didn't make the time for Spider-Man that I originally thought I was going to, because honestly, I thought, the week that comes out, I was going to play it and be done with it and, rank it up on my list somewhere, having actually played it. But I just never made that time last year. So at some point this year, I'll get into that, possibly, soon, because now I'm done with Control, or at least done the main story of Control. I'm not entirely sure what direction I'm going to go in. I've, got Jedi Fallen Order and a couple other things kind of in the queue, and we'll see how it goes.
All right. So I guess we're moving on to our number 4 game. So what's your number 4 game? Because I already said my number 4
is Spelunky 2. It's a game that I got this year and played a little bit of, but I've talked about it a million times if you listen to the podcast. Normally, it's just a game that playing on something other than a Vita or a Switch where I can just pick it up and play it just kind of doesn't hit me in the same way. And in combination with the way I experienced it, where differently from the way I experienced the first one, trying to come into this with less knowledge about the game as opposed to the first one, which I was brought into the game by watching other people play it and kind of getting more knowledge about it and understanding how the gameplay worked. I think I did myself a disservice, and I think once that game comes out on the Switch this year, it's probably just going to be over for me the same way it was once I really got into the original game on the Vita. Just, something that basically I leave on all the time. Like I'm kind of concerned about other games that come out on the Switch, because you know how I am. Like I leave a game running and I don't switch between games a lot. So we'll see if that turns out to be true, and if I actually am right about my half-ass prediction list here. See if that hits me the way I hopefully expect it to.
Okay, you keep going, man. You gotta keep going until I get to number 1.
All right. So my number 3 is Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. Really the only game on the list that I spent any substantial amount of time with this year. But it was exactly what I needed this year. It was just a straight shot of nostalgia right into my veins, while also being a much needed improvement. It's not to say that those games aren't good, but I'll be honest with you, revisiting those games, if I played just those games nowadays, I would be kind of iffy about them, because a lot of the moves that they added in, like Tony Hawk 3 and 4, that allow you to keep these combos going and these lines, manuals and reverts and things like that, racking up huge scores, just weren't there in those games. But being able to explore those environments that I do remember and spent a lot of time in, I can't tell you, like, thinking about the school and trying to make that one certain jump where you're like trying to go in from the courtyard to the roof. Like I spent fucking hours trying to do that some days on the PC back when I was younger. So yeah, it was just perfect. It kind of goes hand in hand with the news we were talking about on the previous podcast that, the Vicarious Visions, the developer of this, is kind of going away. And it's just, it's a little disappointing that maybe we won't get the 3 and 4 edition of this that I would really like to see, or those levels added to this, because it really was pitch perfect. The upgraded models, the graphics are beautiful, and I can't even imagine how good they look on like an HDR TV, because I know it has all that stuff. Yeah, it just smooth as hell. Gameplay feels pitch perfect. Freaking loved it this year. My number 2 is Half-Life Alyx. This is a game I was excited.
Time out, man.
You want to talk about Tony Hawk? Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, Tony Hawk. That's a game I wish I played a little bit more. I mean, I probably played a little bit more this year. Because I did enjoy what I played. I heard that they did an update where now all the missions can be reset and stuff or like with different characters. So it might be worth revisiting now for you. Oh, okay. Well, thing is, I think we found the workaround on that where I just didn't connect online or something like that. I
didn't realize if that had ever worked for you or not.
Oh yeah, that did. But I mean, what I was about to say, I just didn't have time to play more of it, but I did enjoy it. I just got to get a handle of it because I still wasn't getting used to it, to the controls of it. I was still learning, but I was getting a little handle on it, but I just needed more practice. I just didn't put enough time into it, and maybe this year I have more time to put into it because I do like that game. I mean, 3 was the one I played the most. That was like basically the first one I really played, and that was basically the first and only one. I didn't think I ever tried it again other than 3, and I played the shit out of 3. All right, so and my number 3, which I already said, but it was Hades. It was no, my fault. No, my number 3 was Doom. So, what's your number 2?
All right, my number 2 is Half-Life Alyx. This is one that just kind of I was excited about for multiple reasons. I was excited because it was a new Half-Life thing, and I was also excited because it was VR, and I could, set my shit back up and get that going and have something like a full experience instead of some of these more like casual play around things with like an actual game designed for VR. And then it just turned out that either my system isn't up to par or it just doesn't, cooperate for some reason. So I didn't really actually get a chance to play that game. And that's kind of, the disappointment I had this year. But I'm still very excited to one day play that. I don't know when or how that's going to be. But hopefully I get there one day, even if it just ends up being that it comes in 2D to the PC, which I don't necessarily expect it to do. It sounds like the VR stuff is pretty, a pretty important part of that game. And that's how I would like to experience it. But, it is what it is, Dominic. Sometimes shit just doesn't work out.
Yeah, my number 2, what you already said, was Hades. So now we get into our number 1. So I guess it will be me because your number 1 was Spider-Man Miles Morales, right? Yeah. Yep. So my number 1. Yeah, my number 1 is Yakuza Like a Dragon because I really like the Yakuza series, and for what I've seen from Like a Dragon and the way they changed it up to be more of a RPG, was not a bad thing. It actually seemed pretty interesting, and it seems like the story is still there, like the comical, like the comedy of the story sometimes, which is Yakuza has, and then the series mixing it with the seriousness of the main story. It seems like that is still there. It seems like very exciting. Like I want to try that game out eventually. After I finish all of the Yakuza, since they're coming out soon, I'll probably get my hands on that game. But
and then by that time, they'll be on Game Pass. Yeah,
exactly. So that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping to be on Game Pass by then, so I don't have to buy it. But yeah, I mean, it just like they really changed it up a bit. Like people were scared, like, oh no, it's like, is this still going to be all right game since they really changing the mechanics? And they did. And it sounds like people were really excited about this game. So I was like, man, it's got me excited. I was like, man, but I want to beat these other Yakuza games first. But yeah, I think I would really love this game. From what I've seen, I think I would really love Like a Dragon a whole lot. The thing is, I haven't looked too much into it because I didn't want to spoil a lot of stuff for me. So that's really why I can't really say much on it. But for what the few things I have seen of it. It's like graphic looks great. The guy looks funny with that hair too. I mean, you can see that. But yeah. It looks like it's having like a fun, good time. Like it's just having a good time in that game. For what I've seen people play. So yeah, I figured like, you know what? I think that would have been my number one. I say that I played all these games. I feel like this would have been my number one game for that year. So yeah,
I could absolutely see that.
So I guess that is it for our half-ass top 10. But yes, say what's our real game of the year for 2020? As in, what was our favorite game of that we played for the first time in 2020? It doesn't have to be that it released in 2020, but it's the game you played in 2020 for the first time and you enjoyed the most that year. So, what was the game for you in 2020?
For me, I think it was pretty obviously Control. I spent the last couple of months working my way through that game, and I was very impressed by it.
Not Tony Hawk? Wow.
Yeah, I think it's right up there, but I spent a lot more time with Control. I really just kind of speed ran Tony Hawk and then ran out of stuff to do, honestly, especially since they messed up by not letting you do the different goals with different skaters. I think had that been the case, I would have spent so much more time with that, and I probably would have made that the game. But yeah, Control just it hit so well with me because I really like action third person games, and then just all the additional stuff of just all the powers that they gave you in that game, the atmosphere. The story kind of fell flat on me a little bit. It seems like the weakest part of that game, but the atmosphere, the gameplay, everything else about it, I thought it was really top notch.
Yeah, I gotta complete that game now because I did like what I played in that game too. Like, it felt awesome. I mean, it felt powerful. Like you was like a Jedi, a modern day Jedi.
Yeah.
But the game, I guess the top game for me for 2020 would be Doom Eternal. I think Doom Eternal would be it's my real number one. That's the game I mostly enjoyed that year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't think of no other game I really enjoyed that year as much as that I played. That I was really into. That has been my. Yeah, I think Doom Eternal is probably my number one game of the year. I mean, I already spoke on it, so I don't need to go too deep on it.
Gotcha.
But yeah. All right, so that was our games of the year. But, we got to have a definitive podcast game of the year. But before we get to that, it's one thing that's missing off our list that was on a lot of other people's lists. At least on their list. It's even other websites or people's number one game of the year. And we didn't even have it on our top 10, which was The Last of Us Part 2. And I mean, you heard my discussions of it. Why I wasn't really excited about playing it, because I did recently play The Last of Us Part 1. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really enjoy the gameplay. I wasn't really enthralled with the combat of the game. The story I did like. I really liked the story.
A fantastic movie.
I could, yeah, it is. I love it, and I even hear they're about to do a TV series or a movie of one or the other. I think it's maybe a TV series.
I think HBO is doing a miniseries.
Yeah, which I'm not too excited for, because I'm like, I've already seen it.
Right.
Are
you just going to tell me the same story? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really excited for that. But anyway, it is a great story. Like for a video game, I think it's a great story. The second one, for what I saw so far, it was interesting. It was an interesting story. It was pretty good. But knowing how the gameplay was in the first one, I don't see it really being like better for me in the second one. It's still that type of stealth, slow action which only a few games have really tickled my fancy in that. Like, that's really got me to really enjoy playing that. And one of those games is like Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. And 3. I can say 3 too. When I did like that series, like the gameplay, I actually enjoyed going through and the slow paces and taking out your enemy of that nature. Even some Assassin's Creed, like in the early Assassin's Creeds, I enjoy doing that. And there's probably a few other games I didn't mind the stealth in. But I don't know. This game, the Horizon Zero Dawn, like trying to track the dinosaurs, or the robotic dinosaurs of that nature. But and set up traps for them. But in this, I don't know. I just didn't really enjoy it. I was more of like, I just want to shoot these guys. Like, I just want to shoot. Like, I want to play like it's Uncharted when I know it's not Uncharted.
Right.
And just like when I did try to play it the way you're supposed to play it, it just felt too slow for me. And I was like, I'm not having fun doing this. It's not having fun. And then when I forget seeing, I'm like, fuck. I was like, what a waste. I could have just came in just blazing. Yeah. Well, actually, I couldn't blaze because I don't have enough ammo, but I could have like shot and run and pick up stuff and shot again or something like that. But yeah, that's the reason why. I mean, I think it's an okay game, but it's just not my cup of tea. It's not my cup of tea. But why didn't you have The Last of Us? Why didn't you have this on your top 10?
I mean, it's a game that I still haven't even played the first one of, and that's a game that I do want to play, and I do want to play 2 at some point, barring me actually, not liking the gameplay like you. Because I never really got far enough in the first one to actually engage with that stuff. I played the first bit where you're kind of setting up the story, but I never actually got into any of the real combat encounters. So I don't really know what that game is. I've always been enthralled by the story, and somehow until very recently, I actually was very, hadn't actually had it spoiled and just didn't remember how that game concluded. So I was kind of like, one of these days I'll get around to it. And having the PS4 remaster, like one of these days I do want to just kind of sit down and go through it. But I just never made that time last year, and the year went by so quickly, and there were so many other games that admittedly, I think even had I played that first game, I don't know that it would have really beaten any of the ones on my list. Maybe Paper Mario and Ghost of Tsushima, just because those two are kind of up in the air a little bit. But yeah, I just, it seems like a thing that has a really cool story, but the gameplay for me isn't necessarily there. And when I say cool story, I mean very well crafted story. It doesn't seem like it's like, this is, going to make me feel good about myself. And maybe that's
a Schindler
part of it
List.
too.
It's a Schindler List of video games.
Exactly. Yeah. So, it's not something that I was like actively seeking out. I think the conversation we had last year was like, I was interested in getting it, but then eventually like the talk I heard of like Final Fantasy VII, even like the story for that and the way they changed that from the original game actually intrigued me a little more. So if it's something that's like, both of these gameplays I don't really like, I could see myself liking Last of Us a little bit more, maybe just because it is a little bit more action focused than, the kind of not really turn-basy, but also not exactly smooth action, gameplay of a Final Fantasy VII. But that's me digressing, as always.
But I would think you would like the gameplay on this because you like the stealth games. You liked Splinter Cell.
Splinter Cell, yeah. And it really depends on which direction they go with it. Because like Splinter Cell, I liked, but like Metal Gear Solid, I didn't quite as much. And I think that was more because Splinter Cell that was kind of the entire focus of the game. Like, there was story to it, but it was really just, and especially stuff like breaking the lights and very intricate things like that. It was almost like a puzzle game in a lot of ways, whereas like a Metal Gear Solid was more of an action, stealthy kind of thing. And I could see this being closer to that. And then getting to a point where it's just like, okay, I just want to get to the story beats, you know, and not really engage with these freaking mushroom head things that keep attacking me, or these deranged people. It's a game that, you know, if I had a list of 11, it probably would have made it on there. But just, it wasn't really a top priority for me after a while. After the hype kind of subsided, because, you know, you'll see me talk about it a lot, but like when a game comes out, I'm like, okay, everybody's talking about it. I'm interested in getting my hands on it. But then once the hype dies down a little bit, I'm usually like, oh, I've got all these other games that I need to put some attention in first. So, I mean, it definitely looks like a good game. I can see why other outlets may have it at the top or near the top of their list. But for me, it's just not something I was looking for last year as far as mood or, you know, even just gameplay wise, really.
All right. So now we get to what is our decision to be the number one game of the podcast, our top game for 2020 of the Super Ultra podcast. And I guess really, if we're going to be fair, we have to see, we got a couple games on our list that we have on both our lists, I should say. But it's probably best to do math. If we
count the votes, Dominic, count the votes.
If you use like where is these games on our list, and then subtract it to make it see, hey, what's the highest number after we subtract the numbers? That will be our game of the year. And it looks like it will be Miles Morales Spider-Man, or Spider-Man Miles Morales will be our game of the year, because that was your number one and that was my number 5, I believe, because I don't got my list open. I think that was my number 5. And Doom, unfortunately, which I would prefer it to be.
The Electoral College vote was for Doom.
But since you just have a horrible list and had that number 1, that's why we ended up with it. So
welcome to America, Dominic, where you never really get the choice you want when you vote, but you know, you deal with it, and maybe Miles Morales passes a $15 minimum wage. Who knows?
But yeah, so Spider-Man Miles Morales will be the Super Ultra Podcast half-ass game of the year. And
I mean, I think it's fitting to call it the half-ass game of the year, because it is kind of a half-ass game, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Now we just need to make a trophy and then send it to Insomniac and see if they'll, you know, talk about it on their Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, say, hey, we got the half-ass game of the year from these guys who we never heard of. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, yeah, I guess that is it for a half-ass game of the year list. So, what you got anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's it for me.
All right. You can close it out.
All right. If you like this podcast, guys, we've got normal podcasts weekly. You can check us out on Twitter. Dominic is at DStallworth5. I'm at RegulusMB. The podcast is at SupaPod, SupaPod. SupaPod.com is the website. You can find links to all the places where you can find our podcast: iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, where you may be seeing this. In fact, there's usually gameplay behind the videos or some sort of footage from the game, as I'm sure Dominic will add in this one for games that we didn't necessarily play. Until next time, guys. See you later.
All right, see you.